At the core of every woman who consistently attracts high-quality men is one unshakable principle: radical personal responsibility. This is not a slogan. It's not self-help fluff. It is a psychological transformation, a deep, honest reckoning with oneself. What does this actually mean? It means she refuses to see herself as a victim of her past, her exes, or her circumstances, not because she hasn't been hurt, not because she hasn't faced injustice, but because she understands that staying in the role of a victim disempowers her completely. It robs her of the ability to act, to transform, to grow, to choose. And without the power to choose, she knows she'll attract chaos instead of stability, drama instead of depth, and boys instead of men. Taking responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself for everything. It means accepting that your response to life is always within your control, that your standards, your reactions, your boundaries, your beliefs, they are yours. They are not inherited. They are not dictated by men, media, or society. They are chosen, and they can be rechosen. When a woman steps into this mindset, she stops asking, "Why don't men treat me right?" and starts asking, "Why have I tolerated being treated this way?" That shift is seismic. It's the difference between repeating old wounds and rewriting your story. This type of woman doesn't wait for someone to complete her. She completes herself. She studies her patterns. She learns from her mistakes. She stops dating from a place of emptiness and starts living from a place of self-respect. She realizes she doesn't have to be perfect, but she must be accountable. That's where her strength lies. Responsibility also means owning your desires without shame. A woman of integrity doesn't play coy about wanting commitment, respect, or a strong, capable partner. She doesn't dim her standards to avoid scaring someone off. She states her truth plainly. Because the right man won't run from clarity, he'll rise to it. This kind of self-responsibility is rare. It requires emotional maturity. It demands the ability to say, "Well, my current reality is a result of what I've allowed, attracted, or ignored. But I'm not staying here. I'm changing it. Today." That level of ownership doesn't just attract strong men, it repels weak ones. You'll notice something else. Women who embody this mindset don't need a relationship to feel whole. They are open to love, but they are not dependent on it. And paradoxically, it's that independence, that centeredness, that draws in men who are secure, driven, and ready to lead alongside an equal. They also don't waste energy trying to control others. Instead, they take control of what they can, their habits, their mindsets, their standards. They clean their inner world first. They know that waiting for someone to fix them is a recipe for disappointment. So they do the hard work themselves. Therapy, journaling, reflection, discipline. They build a life so solid the right partner doesn't complete the puzzle. They complement it. To take radical responsibility is to stand firmly in your power, even when it's hard, even when it's lonely. It is to say, "I will not settle. I will not chase. I will not play small. I am responsible for the quality of my life and the quality of the man I allow into it." That right there is where the real transformation begins. Charm may turn heads, but depth turns lives. The women who consistently attract the best men are not merely charming. Charm is surface level. It's the smile, the glance, the playful tone. It may catch attention, yes, but it doesn't hold it, not for long. What truly captivates a man of substance is depth, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. So what is depth? Depth is when a woman has substance, layers beneath the exterior. She has thoughts she's wrestled with, beliefs she's earned through experience, values that are non-negotiable. She can entertain complexity, handle nuance, and engage in difficult conversations without flinching or fleeing. She's not trying to be agreeable, she's trying to be real. That's rare. And why does it matter? Because strong, high-integrity men are not looking for someone to impress. They're looking for someone to build with. And building anything worthwhile, relationship, family, legacy, requires strength of character. It requires someone who can look into life's chaos and hold their center. That doesn't come from flirtation. It comes from cultivation. Women who cultivate depth have curiosity. They read, they reflect, they journal, they challenge their own ideas. They're not trapped in echo chambers or obsessed with shallow trends. They explore psychology, philosophy, faith, art, anything that adds dimension to their understanding of life and self. They're not trying to look interesting, they are interesting. And that's magnetic. Men of depth can sense this instantly when a woman knows how to ask powerful questions, when she listens deeply without interrupting, when she can share her own vulnerabilities without collapsing into insecurity. That strikes a man's soul, not just his senses. It makes him think, not just react. And very few things are more alluring than that. Depth also means emotional intelligence. These women don't just feel, they understand their emotions. They don't weaponize feelings. They articulate them. They don't hide from hard truths. They face them, process them, and express them in a way that invites connection, not chaos. This doesn't mean these women are cold or overly serious, quite the opposite. They can laugh, play, flirt, but all of that is rooted in something real. Their joy is not performative, it's a byproduct of inner peace. Their humor is not a mask, it's a reflection of confidence. They are light because they have known darkness and chosen to rise from it. Depth also brings discernment. These women don't chase attention, they evaluate alignment. They're not interested in being adored by many. They're interested in being deeply seen by one who truly understands them. And because they know their own worth, they are not easily impressed by status, bravado, or empty promises. They seek depth in others because they've earned it in themselves. Let's be clear, depth takes work. It's not handed to you. You don't inherit it. You forge it. Through heartbreak, through healing, through long nights of introspection and hard conversations with yourself. But once you have it, no one can take it from you. And the men who recognize it will never see you as replaceable. So don't aim to be the most attractive woman in the room. Aim to be the most present, the most real, the most authentic. Let charm be the door, but let depth be the foundation. Because the best men aren't looking for entertainment. They're looking for meaning. And meaning lives in the deep end. Let's get something straight. Real strength is not masculine aggression, nor is it passive compliance dressed as kindness. Real strength, feminine strength, is rooted in grounded confidence, self-respect, and unwavering clarity. It is a force that does not need to scream to be heard, nor shrink to be accepted. The women who attract the best men do not rely on weak, approval-seeking behaviors to gain affection. They do not twist themselves into shapes to be more likable, more agreeable, or more easygoing. They do not sacrifice their voice just to avoid conflict. That's not kindness. That's self-abandonment. And any man who finds that attractive is not operating from strength himself. Instead, these women show up in their full presence. They know how to lead with grace and when to hold the line with unshakable firmness. They don't try to be on one of the boys, nor do they weaponize femininity as a tool of manipulation. They own their softness, their empathy, their intuition, and they pair it with discernment and self-respect. They understand that feminine strength doesn't mean suppressing emotion. It means knowing how to express emotion without being consumed by it. It's the ability to feel deeply and stay composed. It's crying without collapsing. It's being nurturing without being naive. It's loving without losing yourself in someone else. And most importantly, they know how to say no. No to situations that insult their integrity. No to men who offer attention but no intention. No to relationships that demand they shrink in order to stay. These women understand that boundaries are not about pushing people away. They're about honoring your own worth. They know that a man's respect is not earned by being endlessly agreeable, but by demonstrating that your principles are not negotiable. A woman who embodies feminine strength doesn't need to dominate to feel powerful. She doesn't need to emasculate to assert her voice. Her power is not in opposing masculinity, but in complementing it. She knows how to challenge a man without attacking him. She offers her perspective without making it a war. She stands firm without being rigid. That balance is rare. And when a man of depth meets it, he doesn't run, he straightens up. You see, the best men are not looking for obedience. They're looking for alignment. A woman who knows who she is, what she values, and what she will never settle for. A woman whose presence makes him want to be better, not because she demands it, but because her example calls it out of him. Weak-pleasing may keep someone temporarily interested, but it won't keep them respectful. And without respect, there can be no real intimacy. The moment you trade authenticity for approval, you begin to attract men who are not looking for a partner. They're looking for control, convenience, or comfort. Feminine strength disrupts that dynamic. It commands reciprocity. It says, I'll give, but I expect the same. I'll support, but not at the cost of my sanity. I'll love, but only if it's love in return. Not dependency, not manipulation, not chaos. And here's the paradox. The more a woman stands in that strength, the more freedom she creates in the relationship. Because strong boundaries foster trust. Trust creates safety. And safety allows love to flourish, not in fear, but in truth. So stop aiming to be the most liked. Start aiming to be the most respected by yourself first, and by others second. Because the kind of man who is worth your time isn't intimidated by your strength. He's inspired by it. One of the most powerful decisions a woman can make is to walk away from a relationship, a situation, or a dynamic that does not honor who she is. The women who consistently attract the best men aren't just confident, they are self-respecting. And self-respect means they are willing to leave when the standard isn't met. This isn't about being cold, dismissive, or detached. It's not about ego or playing hard to get. It's about a deeply rooted belief that nothing and no one is worth the cost of your dignity. Far too often, women stay. They stay because they see potential. They stay because they've already invested time. They stay because they're afraid of being alone. They stay because they confuse consistency with commitment. But the truth is, staying with someone who repeatedly shows you they are not ready, not willing, or not capable of loving you properly, that's not loyalty. That's self-abandonment. The women who attract and keep high-quality men do not play that game. They know when to give a chance and when to draw the line. They pay attention to patterns, not promises. They don't get hypnotized by chemistry while ignoring character. If a man is inconsistent, avoidant, dishonest, emotionally unavailable, or simply not investing in the relationship, they don't wait around hoping he'll change. They leave. Why? Because they value peace over potential. They understand that what could be is not more important than what is, and they don't let fear drive their choices. Because when fear is in the driver's seat, regret is always the destination. Walking away takes courage. It's not easy. It means facing loneliness, uncertainty, and discomfort. But these women have done the inner work. They've learned to sit with themselves. They've built lives that are full, with or without a partner. So when a relationship no longer serves their growth, they don't cling, they release. There's a quiet strength in that. And here's what happens when a woman walks away with self-respect. She immediately sets a new standard for what she will allow. She communicates, without words, saying, I don't tolerate half-love. I don't beg. I don't chase. I rise. And in doing so, she creates space for someone who can actually meet her, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually. You see, real men, mature, grounded, self-aware men, are not looking for a woman who tolerates poor treatment. They are drawn to women who have enough backbone to walk away from anything that doesn't feel right. Not because they're difficult, but because they're clear. This clarity sends a signal. It says, I know who I am, I know what I bring, and I know what I deserve. It's not about being harsh, it's about being honest, about refusing to play the endless game of fixing, rescuing, or settling. Women with self-respect don't need to control others. They don't need to scream or prove their worth. They just choose to leave when something costs more than it's worth. And that choice? It's magnetic. It commands respect from others. And more importantly, it builds unshakable self-trust, the kind that says, no matter what happens, I will protect my peace. I will choose myself. That's not just attractive. That's transformational. So if you want to attract the best men, the ones who are grounded, present, and capable of real partnership, start by asking yourself, do I respect myself enough to walk away when I need to? If the answer is yes, you're already halfway there. There's a reason some women attract high-value men, not just in terms of status or charm, but in substance. These women don't need a relationship to feel fulfilled. They are not waiting to be chosen. Why? Because they are already aligned with their purpose, and partnership becomes a complement to that, not a substitute for it. Let's be clear. Purpose is not a career title, a paycheck, or a fancy job description. Purpose is your why. It is the driving force behind your life, the thing that gives it meaning, structure, and direction. It's what makes you feel most alive, most useful, most in flow with your highest self. And women who are in alignment with this have an entirely different energy. They radiate conviction, not confusion, direction, not desperation. These women are not looking for someone to come and give them an identity. They've already done the work to know who they are. They've confronted their fears, explored their strengths, healed their wounds, and asked the hard questions: what do I stand for? What am I building? What kind of life do I want to live? And from this clarity, they don't seek a savior, they seek a partner. And that's precisely what makes them so attractive. Because here's the truth. Men of substance, men with vision, strength, and ambition are not looking for a woman to complete them. They're looking for someone walking her own path, someone who is not afraid of growth, someone who adds to their life, not drains from it, someone who is not waiting to be fulfilled by a man but is already fulfilled within herself. When a woman is aligned with purpose, she naturally develops discernment. She no longer entertains relationships just for attention, validation, or comfort. She asks, does this relationship help me grow? Does it align with my values? Does it move me forward or pull me back? And if the answer is unclear, she pauses, not because she's afraid to love, but because she refuses to settle. She knows that a relationship is not just about feelings, it's about direction. You don't just fall in love with someone's charm, you commit to someone's path. And if his path leads in the opposite direction of your purpose, love alone is not enough. That's not cold. It's wise. Purpose-aligned women are also deeply magnetic because they are centered. They are not chasing men. They are attracting through presence, energy, and intentionality. They are more focused on building something meaningful, whether that's a business, a mission, an art, a family vision, or personal transformation. And in doing so, they create a life that's already rich. That richness calls in men who want to contribute, not consume. Another thing, these women understand that alignment with purpose makes them more emotionally stable. They don't lose themselves in relationships because they're anchored to something larger than romance. So when the storm comes, and it always does, they don't collapse. They stay rooted, grounded, clear. And that stability creates deep respect. Let's not forget, a woman in purpose is also a woman in progress. She is constantly evolving, not to please others, but because growth is a lifestyle. And the kind of man who is also committed to becoming the best version of himself, he sees that, and he recognizes a match. So if you want to attract a man who is on a mission, get on your own. Know where you're going. Know what you value. Know what you will build, with or without a partner. And from that place of purpose, love becomes powerful, not because it fills a void, but because it amplifies an already whole life. A tragic mistake many women make, especially in their younger years, is equating emotional chaos with emotional depth. They confuse highs and lows with intensity, instability with chemistry, and toxic patterns with love. But the women who consistently attract the best men, the ones who are emotionally grounded, stable, and devoted, don't fall for that illusion. They've outgrown it. They know the difference between drama and passion, and they choose peace, not chaos. Let's be honest, drama can be addictive. The late-night arguments, the hot and cold behavior, the jealousy disguised as love, it creates adrenaline. It feels like something is happening. It feels intense, unpredictable, exciting. And when you've been conditioned by unstable relationships, that can feel normal. But it's not passion, it's emotional volatility. It's trauma playing dress up as romance. Passion doesn't scream. Passion doesn't slam doors. Passion doesn't manipulate, ghost, or guilt trip. Real passion is presence. It's connection. It's when two people are so safe with each other, they can be fully seen without fear. It's not built on games. It's built on truth. Women who attract high-quality men don't fall for emotional roller coasters anymore. Why? Because they've healed enough to recognize that emotional chaos is not proof of love. It's a symptom of unresolved pain. They've done the inner work. They've examined their attachment styles, their triggers, their wounds. They've asked themselves, why am I attracted to people who confuse me? Why do I feel more chemistry with the unavailable than with the consistent? And they answer those questions with brutal honesty. These women start to rewire their nervous systems. They learn to find comfort in consistency. They learn to breathe through boredom instead of chasing chaos. They learn that peace is not dull, it's profound. And when they meet a man who is calm, clear, and consistent, they don't reject him for being sued too nice. They recognize him as safe, secure, and healthy. They stop interpreting anxiety as desire. They stop believing that passion means pain. They stop mistaking attention for affection or possession for devotion. They understand that emotional maturity is sexy, that a man who communicates, who doesn't play games, who holds space during conflict instead of igniting it, that man is a keeper. Not because he creates drama, but because he creates trust. There's a key shift that happens here. These women stop asking, does he make my heart race? And start asking, does he make my soul rest? That's the shift from emotional addiction to emotional intelligence. And it's where real love begins. Because here's the truth, passion is sustainable when it's grounded in emotional safety. When both people are seen, heard, respected, when disagreements don't escalate into explosions, when differences don't trigger insecurity but open up deeper understanding. That's passion with roots. That's the kind of passion that lasts, not just for a season but for a lifetime. The women who truly value themselves don't light matches in the middle of their love lives just to feel the heat on. They build fires that keep burning, quietly, steadily, beautifully. They know that peace doesn't mean the absence of excitement, it means the presence of stability. And they choose that again and again. So if you find yourself addicted to drama, chasing inconsistency, mistaking conflict for connection, pause, reflect. Ask yourself, is this love? Or is this a loop I haven't yet broken? The best men, the ones who show up, commit fully, and love deeply, are not attracted to drama. They are attracted to women who have outgrown it. Because passion that comes with peace, that's where real love lives. There is a profound difference between a woman who lays down ultimatums and a woman who lives by her standards. And the women who attract the best men understand exactly where that line is drawn. Ultimatums are threats. Standards are truths. Ultimatums sound like, if you don't do this, I'm leaving. They are often born out of fear, insecurity, or a last-ditch attempt to control a situation that has already spiraled. They usually stem from desperation, not clarity. They are reactive, not grounded. But standards? Standards are internal. They are non-negotiable truths that don't need to be screamed, defended, or constantly repeated. They are communicated through behavior, not threats. A woman with standards doesn't have to tell a man, she better treat me right or I'll walk. Her energy, her actions, and her quiet self-respect say it for her. These women are not trying to manipulate outcomes. They're not playing emotional chess. They're simply living in alignment with who they are and what they value. And if someone can't rise to meet that, they move on. Not with drama, not with rage, but with calm conviction. Here's why this matters. The best men, emotionally mature, grounded, relationship-ready men, do not respond well to threats. They don't want to feel cornered. They don't want to be parented or pressured. They want to choose their woman freely because her values inspire them, not because she's forced them to comply with demands. A woman who communicates her standards with clarity doesn't need to justify them. She doesn't seek permission. She doesn't over-explain. She simply states with calm strength, "This is what I expect from a relationship. This is how I live. And this is the kind of partnership I am available for." And then she watches, she listens, she observes not what a man says, but what he does. If he aligns, she welcomes him. If he resists, she releases him. That's not cold, that's clarity. And clarity is attractive. These women also understand the importance of communicating early. They don't wait until they're 5 months deep into a confusing dynamic to suddenly bring up their expectations. They're upfront. Not in an aggressive way, but in an intentional one. They don't play games. They don't pretend to be cool with behavior they secretly resent. They own what they want, and they're not ashamed of it. They say things like, I value consistency in communication. Emotional availability is a non-negotiable for me. Sunny guy. I'm not here to entertain casual dynamics. I'm looking for a real connection. And they say it without flinching, without apologizing, without fearing that they're too much. This kind of communication filters out the weak immediately. The men who were only looking for convenience disappear. The ones who aren't ready get uncomfortable and fall off. And that's exactly the point. Because now only the men who respect her standard remain. It's not about control, it's about alignment. The woman with standards doesn't try to make someone fit her mold. She simply makes room only for those who do. There's power in that. Quiet, unwavering power. The truth is, men respect what women respect in themselves. If you tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, and confusion, so will he. If you communicate clearly, walk with integrity, and follow through on your word, he will rise to meet you or he will remove himself. Either way, your peace stays intact. So stop issuing ultimatums in the hope of making someone stay. Start communicating standards that make the right man step forward. Because when you speak from self-worth instead of fear, you don't have to demand better. You attract it. The women who consistently get the best men, the ones who are emotionally available, strong, committed, and ready to build something real, understand a simple but profound truth. You don't chase what's meant for you. You attract it. Now let's be clear, this doesn't mean sitting around passively waiting for Prince Charming to knock on your door. Attraction is not laziness, it's alignment. These women live in such a way, through their mindset, their standards, their energy, and their self-respect, that the right man notices them. Not because they're trying to get noticed, but because they're already shining. Chasing, on the other hand, is rooted in fear. It says, I need to prove my value. I need to convince someone to choose me. It leads to overfunctioning in relationships, doing too much, texting too often, over-explaining, initiating constantly, and tolerating too little in return. It creates a dynamic where a woman is always reaching, while the man becomes passive, or worse, indifferent. That's not connection. That's imbalance. The women who attract instead of chase don't audition for men. They don't contort themselves to fit someone else's desires. They don't chase attention because they've already given themselves validation. Their confidence doesn't scream, it resonates. It comes from a deep place of self-trust, not performance. They understand their energy is valuable, and they don't give it away cheaply. They're not afraid to initiate connection when it's appropriate, but they quickly step back when they see a lack of reciprocity. They don't chase someone who's emotionally unavailable, inconsistent, or unsure. They simply recognize, that's not for me, and move on without bitterness. Not because they're cold, but because they have clarity. You see, attraction doesn't start with a man. It starts with how you live. The women who attract powerful, masculine, emotionally grounded men are focused on building a life that's rich in meaning. They invest in their passions. They protect their peace. They grow mentally, spiritually, emotionally. They become the kind of woman a man of depth is drawn to, not because she's chasing him, but because she's standing firmly in who she is. They are not dependent on a relationship for purpose. They're not desperate to be chosen. Because the moment you start operating from desperation, you lose your power, and the quality of men you attract starts to deteriorate. You'll find yourself caught in loops with emotionally unavailable men, or men who love the chase more than the commitment. But the woman who attracts rather than chases, she's a mirror. She reflects to a man what he could have, but only if he's ready to meet her where she stands. Not lower, not halfway, where she stands. And here's what's powerful. High-quality men feel that energy. They sense the difference between a woman who is anxiously chasing and one who is calmly centered. And the ones who are ready for real love, they don't run from that energy, they lean into it. Because they're not looking for a fan club, they're looking for a partner. When a woman stops chasing and starts simply being, her world shifts. She begins to attract men who want to lead, who want to pursue, who want to step up. Not because she pressured them into it, but because her presence inspired it. That's the power of feminine magnetism. It's quiet yet undeniable. It doesn't chase. It invites. It doesn't beg. It beckons. And it doesn't settle. It simply waits in its worth. So the question isn't, how do I get him to like me? It's, how do I become so aligned with who I am that the right man can't help but notice? When you stop chasing and start attracting, you stop fighting for love and start receiving it.